Hi everyone, Ainsley here from Small Fry Creations, where we tackle everything DIY, and this week we're building a laser enclosure. But I don't just want a box to put a laser in, I want something that is multifunctional. So let's roll the intro and get to work. As someone that builds a ton of different stuff out of a ton of different materials and doesn't use the laser 100% of the time, my laser enclosure is going to have to pull double duty. Now the Small Fry workshop already has 2 workbenches, so one is going to have to go. And the workbench on the chopping block is this guy right here, because although he's a fantastic work surface, underneath is being totally underutilized. So we're going to knock this guy down, rebuild him from the ground up, and make him far more functional than he currently is right now. Now obviously we're going to need material, and this project takes 1 sheet of 18mm plywood and 2 sheets of 16mm MDF. You will notice throughout this build I'm using different types of plywood, and that's because I just want to use up what I've already got in the Small Fry workshop. Now our first step is to start cutting our plywood down to length, so let's get to work. My first step was to cut the strips that are going to make up the frames of the workbench. The workbench is 1.2 meters by 1.2 meters, so these frames will help with strength as well as keep everything flat and straight. After cutting the strips on the table saw, it was over to the miter saw to cut them to length. You'll notice the middle pieces are wider than the rest, and this will make sense later on when I show you what I want to store in there. I pre-drilled the holes and secured everything with 40mm wood screws, and it was also at this point that I could start to tear down the old workbench, as I needed the space, but I also wanted to use the MDF top and repurpose it to be the base of the middle section of the base frame. Once I cut it to size, I secured it to the bottom. I could then set that frame aside and build essentially the same frame again, but this time it was going to be the base of the laser enclosure section. This frame has a cutout which will house a piece of timber on drawer slides, so that when the laser is in use, I can pull the drawer section out and have a place for my laptop. When cutting the pieces, I try to either cut them together or use a stop block so that I can ensure the cuts are the same. With the small pieces between the longer pieces, I made sure to measure them after the main section of the frame was together. That way I can ensure the pieces are the right size. Now remember, all these cuts can be made with a circular saw and a straight edge, so if your main game is lasering and you don't have a bunch of tools, then a circular saw and a router will get this build done. Up next was the leg pieces. Using 18mm plywood, I cut 95mm strips, and using 2 pieces, I will secure them together in an L shape. This will give me great meat to get the frame pieces attached and offer great strength and support to the laser box itself. These leg pieces can be adjusted depending on what you want the finish height of the table to be. I will use mine as an outfeed table for my table saw, so my leg height was based on this measurement. It was time to attach the legs to the base frame, and the small block you see in the corner is for the casters that will go on in the next step. The casters I'm using were purchased from Amazon, and they worked really well. They hold a ton of weight and the enclosure moves easily around the workshop. With the base complete, I can now cut the 16mm MDF to size. I'm using MDF as it's nice and flat and smooth and much cheaper than plywood. Although it's a nice tight fit, I still use screws to secure it together, as it will add strength to bring it all together as one unit. I used some clamps to help hold the top part of the frame in place and get everything level so that it could be secured. I added a temporary piece of frame friction fitted to where the drawer part is going to go, as when I was trying to get the frame secured, it was coming out of square because of that open section. The laser enclosure is coming along nicely. I know it doesn't look like much right now, but we're making great progress. And as I was designing this laser enclosure, I was also trying to problem solve some issues that I had in the workshop, mainly around storage. One of those being the sawhorses. I've got 4 of them. They are forever being moved around the workshop and falling over, but not anymore. They've now got a home, thanks to what I think is a genius idea by the engineer. She has designed them to go under the table between the casters, which up until now was entirely wasted space, and it feels so good for them to have a home. If you can't tell, I'm a little excited about it. The next thing we need to do is build the actual enclosure for the laser to sit in, which is going to go on top here. I need to cut some MDF and then build a box, so let's get building so we can start to make this thing look and function like a laser enclosure. I first cross-cut the plywood to make it more manageable, and then I could get the pieces that would make up the sides of the laser enclosure to the correct height. I made cutouts which will be windows so that I can see what the laser is doing during operation, and to make the cutouts I drilled some big holes so that I could get the jigsaw blade in, and then I used the jigsaw to cut away the bulk of the waste. I'm making good progress, but there's a quick tip that I want to pass on to you. If you have watched this channel for any length of time, you will know I absolutely hate using the jigsaw. So what I've done is I've used the jigsaw to rough cut out the hole which is the top of the laser enclosure, and now I'm going to use these 4 pieces of plywood and I'm going to double side tape them right on the line. I'm then going to grab my router with a flush trim bit and run the bearing along those pieces that I've double sided taped down to get me a perfect cutout. It's going to be far smoother, far more accurate, and much easier than using the jigsaw. So let's go ahead, get these double-sided tapes down, get these cutouts cut to the front and the 2 sides, and then we can start to put the laser enclosure together. I find this method may take a little bit longer, but the result is much cleaner and a neater cut. To recess the perspex into the window cutout, so I switched out the router bit to a rabbiting bit, and this bit has a bearing on the bottom that runs along the workpiece, cutting out a rebate. I cut the 6mm perspex to size and also had to round off the edges on the disc sander so that it will match the cutout nicely. I'm going to put these aside and I'm going to come back to them later. I could then put the laser box together, and these little 90-degree corner clamps from Banggood worked perfectly to help me hold everything square and get everything screwed together. I cut the MDF for the bottom of the enclosure to size, but I couldn't secure it down just yet. This is the base of the laser enclosure, and one of the things that I've had to problem solve is how I'm going to attach this base to the frame once I've got the box on it. And what I've come up with is I've marked where the frame is and where I want to pre-drill, and I'm going to pre-drill before I attach the box to the MDF. Once I've pre-drilled it, I can flip it over because then it will be easier to attach the box to this MDF. Then I can flip it back over again and attach it to the frame, and I will have these pre-drilled holes already. Also, the other advantage is I want to be able to attach it to the outside, and once I've got the box in, it's going to be really hard for me to get the drill down in here to be able to attach it to the frame. So by pre-drilling, I can then use my impact driver with an extender bit, and I should be able to send home the screws. That is my plan, so I'm going to go ahead, get these pre-drilled, flip this over and attach the box to it, and then hopefully we can get it attached to the frame. With the pre-drilling complete, I could attach the box to the MDF base and lastly secure it to the stand.
Can you feel it? Can you feel the thunder? Can you feel the love? It's coming through the walls and all the hearts are lighting up. Colors that bring you back to life. Dreaming inside a disco night. All my worries are gone. On and on.
Now we have something that is starting to look like a laser enclosure, and I'm excited as it starts to come together. I've cut the bench top out of the 16mm MDF and I've left it as wide as it possibly can be because why not have the extra bench space, and is also slightly longer as that will leave room for my fingers to be able to lift the top up. I now need to attach the top to the laser enclosure, and to do that I'm going to use a piano hinge. They're really easy to install, super versatile hinges, and I'm going to couple this with some gas struts which will also help with the weight of the MDF and hold the top up when I'm actually working on the laser. Let me explain to you how I'm going to install the piano hinge. I'm around the back of the laser enclosure, and one of the problems I'm facing with the piano hinge is if I was to install it between the MDF and the plywood, it's going to raise the back of the MDF up ever so slightly, and that's annoying for a couple of reasons. Firstly, this is doubling as a workbench, so I want it to be as flat as possible, but I also want to maintain a really good seal around the entire enclosure, because one of the reasons why the laser is in the enclosure is for fume extraction, and that's only going to work if I have a really good seal. So to battle that, what I'm going to do is install the hinge like this. I'm going to attach it to the underside of the MDF, and then I'm going to attach it to the back side here of the plywood. That'll maintain the seal all the way around, and I will still be very easily able to open up the top, and couple this with the gas struts should be strong enough. So let's go ahead, give it a go and see if it works. The piano hinge install was fairly straightforward and didn't cause me any issues. I love a piano hinge because it is so versatile and it's just so easy to install. All right, screws are in. Moment of truth, let's see if she opens and works. Let's go, does she open? She opens! This is amazing. I did it. It works perfectly. And once I have the gas struts in there, that'll help hold it open, it'll help with the weight. Wow, this is awesome. This is going to be so much better for the workshop to have somewhere to store the laser, still have a workbench that I can work on. I feel like that was the hard part. In saying that, I've never installed gas struts, which is what I need to do next, but I'm gonna ride the adrenaline high of getting this part done, and that'll get me through the installation of the gas struts. How exciting. I should note, with the piano hinge, I don't use the regular screws that come with it. I use these screws called stitching screws. I will link them below in the description. If you want to know more about them, go over and check my outdoor projector video, because I go into detail as to why I use those screws. Far better than the screws that come with the piano hinge. So if you're interested in using a piano hinge, check out those screws for sure. But this works. I've got plenty of space up front here for my fingers. This is great. Let's go and get the gas struts and see what needs to be done to get those installed. And I think feel like we're on the home stretch. Let's keep moving. The gas struts were also fairly easy to install. I didn't apply any science about their placement, which you're probably meant to do, but the engineer and myself just played around with them until we had them in a spot that we thought would work. Because they were attached to the sides, I used a router to route out the space for the attachment, and I clamped a scrap piece of timber for added support, and before you knew it, the struts were in place. Not only does this help hold the lid open and give it support, but it also keeps it open so far that I have full access to the laser from all sides. I'm going to turn my attention to the clear perspex. Now, a lot of the laser enclosures that you see out there have an opening in the top so that you can see what the laser is doing, but given that this is also a workbench, that's not an option for me. So what I've done is cut as large openings as I can on 3 of the sides, and I'm going to install a perspex. Now, I could install the clear stuff and then just call it a day, but I'm going to take it one step further. I've picked up some transparent red vinyl, which I'm going to apply to the perspex, which will help just diffuse the laser beam a little. It's not perfectly safe. If I wanted to get perspex that was graded for a laser, you're talking $100 for a 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter sheet, which is far too expensive, and I would need tons of it to fill all of the openings that I've cut. So I think between wearing my laser glasses, which I will do when the laser is running, the vinyl, and also the protective cover that goes around the laser beam, that should be plenty safe for me. So let's go ahead, get this attached, then I can secure them into the laser box, and then we're really on to the finer details. The engineer orders all of my supplies, and she has ordered purple instead of red, which I like. She wants to stay on brand, and it will do the same. It's just trying to diffuse the light. I love that she's gone purple instead of the red. Make sure you stick with the brand colors. This is going to look cool when it's all the way around. All right, let's get this unrolled and installed. The vinyl install was pretty straightforward. You just want to cut the vinyl a little oversized, spray some water onto the perspex and the vinyl, and then lay the vinyl down. You can use a card or a squeegee to push out all the air bubbles, and a Stanley knife to cut it to size. Having the perspex recessed into the plywood will also help protect the vinyl and stop it from peeling up.
There's fire in the passion, yeah. We are breaking all the rules, love is uncontrollable. colors of the world dripping off this boy and girl. Let the others know we are a masterpiece.
Alright, I've got my panels all ready to be installed, and because I've already cut that rebate in the openings, these panels will fit straight in. Now you could just glue them in, but I don't like doing anything permanent in workshop furniture, just in case I ever want to change it for the future. So I have 3D printed these two different styles of brackets, and these are going to hold the panels in place. So if I ever want to change them, I can simply remove these brackets, the panels will come out. So let's go ahead, get these installed, and then this thing is really starting to look like a laser enclosure. With the windows installed, it was the moment of truth. Does the laser fit? Yes, it fits perfectly. All right, the laser is in the enclosure. However, it's been in there for the last 2 weeks because for that amount of time, I have been agonizing and procrastinating how to best extract the fumes out. And this is the part of the project I feared the most because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. This next part is entirely experimental, and I could take the easy route and just vent the fumes straight outside, but I don't want to do that. I want to try and run stuff through filters and see if I can keep everything indoors. If it doesn't work, I'll revert back to just venting it straight outside, but I want to give this a go first. I've read a ton of stuff online, I've looked at Facebook groups, I've taken all of those learnings, and then this is the solution I've come up with. So let me run you through it, and then I've just got to stop procrastinating and just get started. The fume extraction is going to start at the back right-hand side of the laser enclosure, and it's going to come out and run through the first filter, which is this guy, a HEPA filter. And I should note, I'm going to list everything in the description box below if you're interested, but the challenge that I had with this filter is that it's circular, and I'm going to build a box for it to fit in, but I didn't want to lose any of the airflow around the filter, so I need to be able to direct it. And I looked at a bunch of different plumbing parts. I couldn't find anything that would 100% work and that wasn't $100 a piece. Then I found these flower pots. They're just $2 plastic flower pots. I can cut them down to whatever height I want. This one was my test off camera, and it fits perfectly on the filter. I can cut this guy down, join the two together to create a perfect seal, and then I can friction fit that into the box, directing all of the airflow through the filter. Now, to draw the smoke through the filter is going to be this inline fan, and his job is to draw it in and then push it out through the last filter. Now, the last filter is a carbon filter, and hopefully between the two filters we're going to be able to filter out any smells and the smoke, making it a really clean and healthy work environment. So let's go ahead, build the box for this guy to fit in first, and then we can start to work around and start to cut into the laser enclosure, which I'm really nervous about, and hopefully start to extract some fumes. This flower pot solution worked great. The slight taper to the pot helps with directing all of the airflow through the filter, and it's a much cheaper option than anything else I could find.
I've been walking through the valley of the shadows. I let them tell me who I was. I've been talking myself up onto the gallows. Every time I tried to walk away, I couldn't make it through another day. Every time seems being up in an uphill battle. I was trying to make it on my own, my way. You were knocking on the door that I've been looking for. It was right in front of me. I was lost, but now I'm free. And I was blind, but now I see that your love is better than life. Your love is better than life. But I ain't turning back now.
Okay, I'm nervous. I'm at the point now where I need to drill through the enclosure to create the space for the port that is going to start to go out to the fume extraction at the back. I've only got one shot at this because I don't want to replace this piece of plywood. So I've measured twice, hopefully only going to drill once. I'm going to start from the back side and go through, and then once I've punched it through, I'll come from the other side and finish the hole. That way I'll get clean edges on both sides of the hole. Ooh, I'm nervous. I really don't want to stuff it up. Okay, let's just dive in and have a go, right? If I make a mistake, it's just proof I'm trying, right? Okay, let's do this. My gosh, that was stressful, but successful. With the hole drilled, I could start to fit all the pieces to the back of the laser enclosure, And I used some metal strapping to secure the carbon filter to the end, and I did this first so that I knew how much room I had to play with to fit all of the other pieces. The HEPA filter box was next, and I just screwed this to the back of the enclosure, and I positioned the box so that the side could easily come off so that when I need to change the filter, it shouldn't be a hassle. I could then put the inline fan in and use hosing to connect it all together. With the back filter system in place, I could then start to work on the front. If I'm going to suck all of the air out, I also need to have fresh air coming in. So I installed 2 large computer fans that will blow fresh air into the enclosure, and with the fan on the right, I drilled an extra hole just next to it so that I would have a space to run all of the cables for the laser. I used a little conduit to hide the fan cables and also the limit switches for the laser, and this made everything look just a whole lot neater. It was then time to remove the temporary section of the frame so that I could install the drawer slides for the piece of plywood, and this will be my work table for the laptop when the laser is in use. The last step was to install the air assist to the outside of the laser enclosure, and we were finally ready for testing.
I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Harry Potter breaking bread with the muggles. They said I wouldn't make it, now they looking puzzled. They said I wouldn't take it, I'd go and hustle. Get the bag, it ain't never getting fumbled. In the jack, but we came up from the bottom. Through the cracks of the light pour in.
Alright, I think it's time to test the laser. I think we're at this point. So the idea is I've got the fans at the front here that are going to push in the fresh air, and then the exhaust out the back that's going to draw out all of the smoke. And I've got the air assist mounted here on this 3D bracket, and it's outside the enclosure so that it can draw in fresh air, not the smoky air. And the cord just runs up into the enclosure and over to the laser. This drawer is working really well, or shelf. It sits out and pulls out really easily for the laptop when I'm using it, but I can slide it away when I'm not actually using the laser and I'm using the Workbench. All the power cables route underneath the table to a power board, so that makes it nice and neat and tidy. I've got some 7mm plywood. I'm going to throw it in the laser. And let's give it a go and see if it works. I haven't done it before. I have no idea if the exhaust is going to work and if that fan at the back is going to be strong enough, but there's only one way to know, and that's to give it a go. So let's load it up, run a test file, and see what happens. Alright, first cut is done. I apologise if you can hear any of the fans. I'm just leaving the lid closed for an extra minute just so that the smoke can filter out anything that is left inside. I have no idea what it's like inside. I have no idea if the cut was successful, but some of the feedback I've already got that I know that I can fix is that the air assist is vibrating against the drawer slide. So I've just got to undo that bracket, move the air assist across ever so slightly so that it's not vibrating against that bracket. The smell inside the workshop, I ran that cut with no windows, no doors, nothing open. Like, if I really think about it, I might be able to smell it. There is no visual smoke in the workshop at all, so I think for the most part the filters are doing what they need to be doing. I'm really happy with it so far, but I could open this lid and it could just billow smoke out. I hope that's not going to happen, but let's open it and have a look. Ooh. No smoke at all. And no smell. Wow. Did this cut through? Yes, we cut through our 7mm piece of plywood. That is the bracket for a cutting board that I'm going to be making shortly. That's on 7mm, that's really good. No, I can't smell anything, I can't see any smoke. It's working. The HEPA filter and the charcoal filters that I've got running in the back are fine. The fan that I've got is more than enough and more powerful. The fans at the front are doing a great job, obviously, blowing that smoke this way. I'm really, really happy with this. As a side note, check out the honeycomb that I've got. So I'm running the extension meter by meter laser, and Suclpfun recently released these brand new H3 honeycombs in a bunch of different sizes. This is the 800 by 800. It's so much better than using the 400 square. So I'm really happy with that. If you want to check them out, I'm going to link them below because I'm excited. Also, this looks like a really cool handle. Very happy with that also. Ah, yes. And there you have it, the laser enclosure is up and running. I am so happy with how this has turned out. It has completely transformed the workshop, giving me somewhere permanently to store my laser that's dust free. I don't have to drag it in and out of the house, and I've still got this fantastic large work surface. And the best part is, if you want to build one yourself, you can adjust it to whatever size you like that's going to fit your needs and your laser. I've still got all this open space down below. I'm going to leave it like that for a couple of months. I want to see what I store down there, and then I will come up with solutions for what is down there. If you're interested in anything I've used in today's video, you will find them linked in the description box below. And I hope you have liked this video. If you have, help me out by hitting those subscribe and like buttons, and I'll see you on the next one.